Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so Andrew Schulz has been doing a little bit of a mini apology tour. For the first time, kind of openly admitting that he thinks he made a mistake voting for Trump, or really just that he thinks Trump is going too far and that this is scary, this is authoritarian. So it's a little bit of face saving here. It's annoying because it's all the same shit that we knew was going to happen, that we said was going to happen, and some people just kind of want to go through it in real time. But the real thing here, the real question is any of this going to stick? And I don't think it's going to. And that's really the problem here, is that, like, we've seen this before. We've seen the shoe kicking and the aw shucks routine. It's come up a few times. And I will say that for Schulz, he has had a growing amount of discontent with the Trump administration. And I am seeing him levy some criticisms that, like, are pretty scathing. Like, not just saying, I don't like how this looks. But I don't think that's going to stick, because if what he's saying is, and I'll get to this clip and show you, if what he's saying is what he's done has justified all of the worst critiques against him, then that's not actually drawing the connection that what we're seeing now was kind of the intent the whole time, including when he sat down with Schulz on his podcast, which is the reason why Schulz is implicated in all this. So here's a clip that people have been passing around about Schulz. He's talking more about the issues that he has with what he saw happen in Minneapolis and Minnesota. But what I haven't seen people talking about as much is a part at the end where Charlemagne presses him on whether he thinks he got conned by Trump, and he actually kind of begrudgingly admits that he thinks he did.
As soon as I saw Kristi Noem go out there and do that, I was like...
It wasn't only Kristi Noem, it was every single one of them, the entire administration. Now they're walking it back because they see that we have camera footage and we can see this, like, blatant, disgusting, heinous act that transpired, and there's no way. And he's also seeing his own base react to it.
Yes.
And going, like, he's seeing January 6ers go out there and saying, this is horrendous, you cannot do this to people. And once you see them turn on on Trump...
This is a textbook American. This guy... was a
VA,
nurse for
VA
veterans.
VA nurse.
His right to bear arms, concealed carry permit.
He had a permit to carry.
Everybody, and it's funny, and I had to think about this, right? Everybody's like, oh, he was at a protest, Who said he was at a protest?
I think by the protest, people are talking about people around are trying to make it hard for ICE to...
Look at this.
So they have the whistles, they have, like, a lot of stuff just so it makes it hard for ICE to
raise awareness.
Yeah.
But you should do that.
So that's their form of protesting. That's what
I think it's really important that you bring up the administration's response.
It was disgusting.
And the administration swears an oath. The president, these other people, they swear an oath to
the Constitution,
uphold the Constitution. Mm-hmm. This guy was exercising two of his constitutional rights. Okay?
Right to protest.
Let's assume it's the right to protest. Let's assume he is peacefully assembling and protesting, and the right to bear arms. And when you immediately jump to justifying that act, what you are doing is, in an effort to preserve your own personal power, you are shredding the Constitution in the face of the people. And look, I know I had Trump on the podcast, and I'm aware.
Explaining that. Man.
No, but let me just clarify, because I think it is important to say, like, I know how I had him on the podcast, and when I'm talking out about this, I'm not doing it to, like, get people to be like, oh, he's a good guy or whatever like that, or trying to get anybody on my side. I understand that this is a horrific event that happened. I objectively want to talk about it. I'm not trying to, like, win anybody over in this.
You understand? You know the difference between right and wrong.
There's a difference between right and wrong, and there's a difference between, like, respecting and honoring the Constitution, the backbone of our country, and then completely shredding it. And this is completely shredding it. But I will say that this was a breaking point for me in the way that the administration responded to it. Like, I didn't think what's happening right now with ICE could happen in America. I genuinely did not think that was possible. I thought our institution, I thought the Constitution would hold up. When I see it and then immediately defend it, I start to go, we gotta be very loud about this. Like, it all of a sudden becomes not like liberal catastrophic thinking. It starts to become very reasonable, nuanced criticism of the administration. They have just made the the most far left critiques of the Trump administration, their reaction to this has just justified all of them.
Let me ask you-
In one moment, all of their responses, from Trump to Kash Patel, they have justified every single and I know people will probably look at this and be like, they've done a million other things to justify them. Sure, and that's fair. But this specific situation, I think, is a breaking point, and it has justified all those criticism. I think people's antennas are way up, and people's antennas up that were not up initially anymore, right? And it's like, so I understand that immediate reaction to be like, why are we watering down what it means to be a Nazi?
Right.
But this Gestapo situation, I think, is different. And when you're seeing the tactics used, and they are mirrored, and I'm sure maybe it was more severe over there. I don't think we need to compare which is worse, but the same tactics, right? Like, I don't think any of us want to live in a country like that. I definitely don't think that we want to live in a country where we're seeing this every single day. But more importantly, we want people to want to come to America. And I think if people saw that, and I'm talking about legally, but we want people to want to come to America legally. And if they think that they're walking down the street with an accent, that they're going to get stopped by a masked guy with no fucking body cam, no name, they might think twice about that.
If you got cons, you got cons.
Right. Yeah.
You feel like you got cons.
I mean, yeah. Well, it depends. Like, when he came on the pod and he's like, yeah, we're going to go after the criminals. Now they're not going after the criminals. Like, yeah, I definitely do. I feel maybe naive to believe that. And I know that I'm sure there's other platforms where he's like, we're going to get them all out of here. So maybe he's saying whatever he's saying.
77 million people felt just like you.
Yes. But like, I think there are a lot of those 77 million that might feel different about immigration. Like, immigration to me was an issue that I give
There's a lot of
pushback.
people who agree with what he's doing and how he's doing it. Then there's a whole other set of people who I feel like got cons.
So a lot is being said here. Some of this is just him kind of repeating what he already said. I'm not doing this so that you like me, blah, blah, blah. And also saying that he was disgusted by the response from the administration. Now, he gets into some other stuff about the Gestapo and, rightfully agrees that the tactics of ICE are similar to the Gestapo or something of that sort, that type of secret police type of behavior. So, I mean, it's good for someone in his position to be saying that. Honestly, at this point, probably most of the people that still are pro-MAGA to a strong degree would have already stopped listening to Schulz or don't care that he's saying this stuff. And this thing about the administration's response and how that's the important part, and that is the point where he feels the Constitution was shredded. So I both think that there's a lot of people who feel the same way, or that's partially why it was so shocking. Because in a lot of ways, this played out in the same way that a lot of these things do, where a crazy event happens and it sort of seems objective in the way it's covered and talked about at first, and then it starts to split and become this politicized thing, and eventually there's a right and a left side of it, and it becomes hopeless and irreparable. But I think that the administration so openly lying right out the gate with this one made it a little more impossible for some people to immediately jump. The sides of the narrative were already made clear, and people could see right away that going with the administration's narrative was not true, that the administration was willing to come out and immediately lie, and lie in a vicious way, in a way that does in fact trample this guy's rights, and by extension all of our rights. But that is why I said, with the other footage that came out of Alex Preddy where he's kicking the light and engaging in more of this protest behavior against ICE, that you were going to see people waffle on that position a little bit, because it paints a different picture than him walking up to a woman and having his hands up, only holding his phone, and then getting roughed up by these ICE agents, which is what happened. But then you're seeing a little bit of the broader context of these protests and what exactly the nature of them is, and that is stirring a little bit more conversation here. And by the way, I saw some people saying that video of Alex Preddy is AI. It's not, as far as I can tell. I think his family confirmed that it's real. Nothing about that video indicates that it's AI. I've got pretty decent discernment when it comes to that. There's not a single hint of AI anywhere in that video. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be all fake, but I don't think it is. I think that video is real, and we should embrace that, because it doesn't justify his death, and in my opinion, it doesn't make him look any worse. But that's why the nature of the conversation that we're having here is very, very important. And Schulz is willing to go further than a lot of people on the right would to defend Alex Preddy and what he was doing. But he's very careful to frame it in this super particular way, where he's saying this guy was peacefully protesting and had his right to carry, his right to bear arms, and the administration, the moment they came out and said that he was a domestic terrorist and threw that out there, they shredded the Constitution. So that is a fair analysis, but I do think framing it in the way that it was the moment the administration said that kind of leaves the door open for him to flip-flop on this at some point, or change his mind, gradually go back to the same position that he was in before and not meaningfully oppose the administration. Because if this is just about the fact that they came out and lied, what that means is that eventually they can cover for that, they can make it up to you, that something else they say is going to be persuasive enough to you that it gets you back on board. And so that's why this thing about now that Trump has done this, he has made the mistake of justifying all the left-wing and liberal criticisms of him. But if that's the way you view it, that's separating this action from a larger pattern of Trump always having done that, even back through his first administration. And so this thing about peaceful protesting and the framing of what was going on here with ICE. What's going on in Minneapolis with ICE is you have, on a neighborhood and community to community basis, they are resisting the actions of ICE, trying to track them, call them out, and alert their neighbors when they're around. That's the substance of what these like ICE resistance networks are doing. So they're blowing the whistles, they're trying to get people's attention, and they are trying to make it as chaotic and unproductive for these ICE agents to carry out their raids as possible. And if you think that what Trump is doing is authoritarian, that's the right thing to do, period. And so this is a little bit different than like peaceful protesting and ICE agents are storming through, and police do that as well. They do that all the time, and we're going to see more of that as a result of these ICE protests and more unrest that comes from it. And people normally are happy to take the side of the police in those instances, except when the police too obviously go too far. And so if the only problem here is that they too obviously went too far, and then the administration lied in such an egregious way that it made you feel personally unsafe, that they might say something like that about you or someone closer to you at some point. That's not the same as understanding the existential threat to the nation that Donald Trump is posing, which is what Andrew Schulz is claiming that he understands. He is critiquing Trump from that perspective. He's not just saying, you went too far. He's saying this is a threat to the fundamental fabric of our nation. That's true. People have been saying that about Donald Trump for a long time. Charlemagne rightfully points out here that Trump did that when he tried to overturn the results of an election. There's countless examples of him doing this. Obviously, when you propped up Trump and voted for him and laundered the idea to your audience of voting for him, what you did was normalize the politics that he's doing. And all the ideas that he was bringing to the table was always this. It was always going to result in this type of governing, because that's what it is. It's reactionary. Somebody gets shot in the street, the administration has to figure out what they're going to say about it. Instead of staving off judgment and trying to be responsible, they go for the rights. They go for, this was a domestic terrorist who was brandishing a weapon, who was trying to kill our agents. They want to obliterate any justification that this person could have to even be existing in that moment. The ICE agent had no choice but to vanquish his life, and the ICE agent's allowed to do that because the safety of that person matters more than the rights that that ICE agent is trampling. And that is the road to hell. And it's being paved right now. It's actively being paved. The ICE operations have not stopped in Minneapolis. They are sending body cams. They've decided, I think Tom Homan and Kristi Noem have decided that they're going to do body cams. I think that that's just going to turn into a means of propaganda. They're going to probably try not to show us some of the fucked up footage, but we are going to see stuff that's like trying to make ICE look heroic or trying to denigrate these immigrants that they're going after. We're going to see a lot of stuff like that. That's probably why they've decided that they should do this, is to use it for a PR move. And so that's where these guys are going to be tested. If they want to criticize the administration, and Schulz is saying, I'm seeing a lot of people on the conservative side that are criticizing this, and that makes me happy. I'm not seeing that as much, first of all, and I'm not seeing it forcefully. And like I said, I mean, Schulz is making a constitutional argument here, and that's good. But I just don't think it travels very far. Because if you're not willing to defend these people defending their own communities against these federal agents that are coming in, then you're not really grasping what's happening. And it's good that some people are connecting this to like the Second Amendment, or what would happen if these ICE agents were trying to take people's guns away. You know, what would be the appropriate response to that? That's good. That's something that Schulz says here as well. And that's ultimately the nature of this, is do people have the right to defend their communities or not? Because what if it gets ultimately decided, which I think is likely, that none of these ICE operations were ever legal? This was always a violation of every American's rights because of the way they are so indiscriminately going after people, the violence they're using, trying to get into people's homes. They're actively undermining our rights, and that makes the behavior of all of these ICE agents completely illegal. Really not that much of a stretch to think that that could be found just on the laws that already exist without even changing the law. That means that these people who are out in the streets resisting ICE, even by putting their bodies in the way and doing dangerous things, are actually defending the Constitution more than those federal authorities are doing. And so if there's not more of that type of an analysis, if there's not like an analysis of like Trump's agenda in general is clearly fascist consolidation, then really these critiques don't cut that deep, and they're thin as the wind, because Trump is going to do something in 2 weeks, he's going to do something in 3 weeks, and we're going to be far off from this conversation. So I do welcome criticism. I welcome people changing their mind. I give grace. I think I probably give too much grace. I get criticism for that. I think Schulz is kind of a fucking scumbag. But ultimately, my main issue here is that I don't really think he's going to change his mind. And I think if he does, that would be powerful. But it has to come with the fact of realizing that you've empowered almost an anti-political version of politics. That's what Donald Trump is, and that's what the crazy liberals and leftists were always trying to get you to see, is that this form of reactionary politics, this unbridled reactionary politics, is the undoing of all of us. They are going to take every opportunity to unroll a right that you have. And so that's why any event that happens is going to be used as an excuse to further denigrate those rights. That's the nature of reactionary politics. That's the nature of reactionary governing. And the reality is that Schulz and people like him propped that up because they liked that politics. Schulz said that he likes when Donald Trump says, I'm going to take Greenland, and he likes that type of dominance shit. That's what got us to where we're at. And until the culture moves on from that and makes irrelevant people who talk and think the way this guy does, then we can start to like repair some of this social fabric, because the politics that they have ushered in based on their impulses and their thought processes has got us to not only this dangerous and violent form of politics, but just idiotic. It's just stupid. And that's where we're at until the tides turn, which I personally think is coming soon.
Me too close to, too much to do. The mission is too crucial. Shout it out from the rooftops until I lose vocals. Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity.